Hey, what's up, guys? This is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com, and I'm here with our DraftKings NBA picks for Monday, November 2nd. There's a couple ways I want to go about this, but we're going to start off by talking about some of the stars that I think we should be targeting tonight, move on to some of the mid-range guys who fit nicely into your lineup, and then get down to some of those cheap glue guy kind of options who we think can help you fit in some of those stars and also not give up that much of the upside for you. So to start it off, I think the big thing that I want to discuss today is the Oklahoma City game against the Houston Rockets. Now, the thing about this game is the total is the highest on the day at 215, and the spread actually opened at 1.5 before the Rockets game last night and has already moved to about an 8.5 point spread in favor of OKC. Now, the Rockets have lost 3 straight games by 20 plus points. You have Dwight Howard, Terrence Jones, and Donatas Montejunas are all hurt right now. So they're starting basically Clint Capella at the center and guys, journeymen and rookies like, a Montrell Harrell at the power forward spot. So this is not the normal Rockets team that we're used to seeing. This Rockets team also doesn't match up very well with OKC, as their point guard, Ty Lawson, really is not going to be able to guard a Russell Westbrook. Not that anybody's really able to guard a Russell Westbrook, but if you look at the guard matchup in the backcourt, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to, think that Ty Lawson or James Harden is going to be able to stay in front of Westbrook. They can't move Ariza over to guard Westbrook because Ariza is going to be stuck on Kevin Durant most likely. And like I said, it's just not a good matchup at all for this Houston team. Now, with Houston losing 3 straight games by 20 points, there's definitely an issue thinking that they might wind up making that a 4th straight game. With the price that these stars have in this game, everybody on OKC and Houston, whether it be Westbrook, Durant, or Harden, you're basically going to need these guys to play their full allotment of minutes and also to have a good game in order to pay off their salaries. I think that there's a chance that this game could be a blowout with teams, both teams having a couple games in the next few days and in the last few days. I think you could see this game get out of hand. And if it does, I think you're going to wind up seeing guys like Harden, Westbrook, and Durant on the bench towards the end of the 4th quarter. Even a couple less minutes out of any of these guys is going to be enough to keep them from reaching value. Sure, one of the 3 could go off and reach value. My guess would probably be Russell Westbrook would be the guy to target. But I think there are better guys that you can spend up for who are in better situations and have a better chance to play the full allotment of minutes, that are just safer guys to use for cash games and also probably even have a chance for higher upside in tournaments. One of those guys who I want to discuss is Stephen Curry. He has been absolutely phenomenal to start the season this year. And they play a Memphis team that is pretty tough on the defensive end of the floor. Now, the reason why this is actually good, though, is Steph hasn't been playing much in the 4th quarter because they have been getting some big leads and blowing people out. Even with playing, sparse minutes in the 4th quarter, he has put up some phenomenal numbers lately. So against a Memphis team where, there's a good chance that Memphis keeps the game slightly lower scoring and close enough that the starters stay in all the way to the end, I think you are going to get big minutes out of Steph Curry today. And the more minutes Steph plays with the way he's been shooting right now, the more points that a guy like that can put up on the board. Another guy that I think is okay to spend up on today is going to be Blake Griffin. Now, whenever they play against the team and they wind up having an easy victory, Blake is usually the guy who does most of the scoring and usually is the guy that has the big game. Remember, we talked last time how, in games that aren't really close, Chris Paul is content to just kind of be the distributor, make sure everybody else gets the ball, make sure everybody else gets their shots and stays happy. He tries to take over games when they're in close games and his team really needs them. And I'm not sure that tonight is going to be one of those situations. This Phoenix team has been up and down. They were blown out by the Knicks to start the season, which was mind-boggling. And then they went up to Portland and played Portland twice, real tough, and beat, what looked like a really good Portland team after their first game. But it seems like they might be, a little bit of a pretender as well. The other reason why I like Blake is Tyson Chandler is the starting center for Phoenix. So him and DeAndre Jordan, he's a good defender and a good rebounder. So I think Blake's going to have to get inside a little more and help DeAndre Jordan rebound. If Blake gets inside and rebounds, there's a good chance he reaches double digits there. And with the fact that he scores a ton of points anyway, if you take those ton of points and add them to, the double-digit rebounds that he could get if he needs to concentrate more on cleaning the boards today, he could be a guy who winds up with, 35 points, 10 rebounds, gets you the double-double bonus, and, pays off a pretty high salary up there. Of all the guys in that game, he's the one who I like the most to pay off the salary, over Chris Paul and over DeAndre Jordan, even over guys like Eric Bledsoe, who's not a horrible option, but is kind of more of a mid-range priced kind of guy. I do think that he would be the one guy on that Phoenix team that I would look at, because I think Brandon Knight is going to be locked up with Chris Paul, and Chris Paul is a very good defender. So you're going to probably see Bledsoe handling the ball a little more, and he would probably be the one option for Phoenix I would look at in this game if, I was so inclined to put somebody in my roster from that team. I want to mention to you guys that I'm not talking about LeBron James today, because I don't think LeBron is a very good play. It's a low total game over there, and they are expected to win by a lot. He's already said this year he's trying to limit the amount of minutes that he plays. So while I think he'll still have a good game, I'm not saying he's going to have a horrible game. I just don't know if he's going to do enough to make value. But because of that, one of the things and one of the reasons is it seems that Cleveland is, making a concerted effort to get Kevin Love more involved on the offensive end. And that's actually why when it comes down to the mid-range options we're going to talk about now, Kevin Love is one of my favorite plays in that mid-range. Both LeBron and the coach have already said that they want to get Love more involved on the offensive end of the floor. And he's always been a very good rebounder. So if you can add the rebounds that he gets to the fact that he's getting some more shots, getting some more looks, putting up some more points, he's going to be able to put up some big numbers like he did the other day when he had a 50 fantasy point game. Now, his price is still priced like a guy who was the third or fourth option last year on this Cleveland team. But right now, it seems like he's basically the number one option on this team. He's getting shots, he's getting the ball fed to him, and he's still doing the rebounding that he did last year as well. So I think Kevin Love is probably my favorite play in the mid-range, and the one guy on that Cleveland team that I am really looking to target. I think there's a lot of other mid-range plays you can look at too. That Nets and Bucks game is pretty much chock full of guys that are in that mid-price who make a lot of sense for me. You got point guard Jarrett Jack for the Brooklyn Nets. Also their big man, Brook Lopez. Jack is only $6,000. We saw him have some really big games last year. I think his price is a little bit too cheap for a guy who is the starting point guard and the focal point of that offense right now. He has a high usage rate. The ball is in his hands a lot. He creates for himself and for his teammates, and I think he could be somebody that gets you a pretty good score. He can rebound. He can also get some steals. He basically fills up a stat sheet for you. And if he's going to be playing 35 minutes a night, I think he's going to be able to reach value at only $6K. Brook Lopez is the guy who they're running that offense through. He's a good rebounder. He's a very good scorer. And again, he's getting touches on almost every possession. So if they're going to be giving him touches, he's going to pick up a couple assists. He's definitely going to get some points. And I don't think this is a particularly tough matchup for him down low on the blocks. So I do think that Brook Lopez is another guy in that mid-range at about 7K that you can look at. On the other side of that game, there are two other guys that I like as well. Greg Monroe has been an absolute stud lately. And the Bucks do have a couple big guys that are banged up. So if he's going to keep seeing the lion's share of the minutes, either at the center or the power forward spot, if he's going to be playing 35 minutes, he's somebody that you have to look at. Even though his prices come up a little bit, again, he can fill up a stat sheet across the board. He rebounds, he scores, and he's a very, very good passer for a big man. So he's somebody that I think you should look at to put in your rosters. The guy who I'm going to have in a ton of my rosters, though, is going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. He is 6,400 today, had about 45 points in his first game back last time out. And this guy just has huge upside. He's so athletic, has a huge wingspan. He's not a great shooter, but he does get to the hole and score some points. He rebounds for you, blocks shots, defensively gets some steals. I mean, he basically does a little bit of everything. And he's playing big minutes. Not a lot of guys on that Milwaukee Bucks team usually wind up playing big minutes. They have a lot of guys who they kind of rotate in and out. But Giannis is playing a little bit of the power forward spot. He's playing small forward. He could even play the two. He's basically just a guy who is a Swiss Army knife. You can put him wherever you need him, and he's going to give you some production. And at 6,400, I think the price is nice where, he fits in there in the small forward spot, which is a really tough spot to fill most nights over on DraftKings. Those are most of the guys who I like in the mid-range. You're going to need some glue guys as well, some of the cheap guys that you use to save some salary and round out your roster. And there's a couple guys I want to talk about here. First one is Langston Galloway from the Knicks in that $4,000 to $5,000 range. Galloway, I think, is 4,400 on the day. With Aaron Aflalo out, he's been seeing some big minutes and putting up some pretty good points. If this is a guy that can get you between, 25 and 30 fantasy points, even between 20 and 30, say, if his floor is somewhere around 20, at 4,400, that's not bad. That's going to be a pretty solid return for you, and you can fit him nicely into your rosters right there. I do think that he's going to get some big minutes in this game. And again, between the points and the rebounds and the assists and the fact that he adds a couple stats throughout, the entire stat sheet. Remember, he was a guy who a lot of people were using at under 5K last year, and he was paying off that salary pretty much on a daily basis for this Knicks team. Now, obviously, with guys like Carmelo back and Robin Lopez brought over, he's not asked to shoulder as much of the scoring load. But again, it wasn't just the points that was helping him make value last year. It was all the other little things he did as well. So I think that he's in a really good spot today. I also really like Al-Farouq Aminu from Portland. Most people don't know, but he's now the starting small forward over in Portland, playing over 30 minutes a game. His price is only $4,800. I think that that's a pretty solid game for him today. And I think that he's a good bet with a floor of, again, 20, 25 points and a ceiling of, 30 to 40, basically. At a price of $4,800, that's some really good value that you're getting on a guy who has that kind of upside and also that kind of safety with the number of minutes that he's playing. Two other guys I want to mention, Clint Capella from Houston. This guy's not a stud. He's not somebody who I expect to see 30 fantasy points out of, but he's pretty cheap down there in the low $4,000 range. And with Dwight Howard, Montejunas, and Terrence Jones out, I mean, he's basically the biggest guy they have in the roster and the only inside threat that they have. Now, again, I mean, I told you guys, I think OKC may wind up blowing them out, but Capella's kind of matchup proof because they don't have a lot of big guys, and he's going to play whether the game is close or whether they're getting blown out because they just don't have a lot of options. They got rookie like Harrell over there. There's a couple other journeyman guys that they brought in. I think they got Dorsey still. Like, it's really just a mess. So a guy like Capella could see 30 minutes tonight at $4,000. He's very close in a couple games to getting double-doubles. If he puts up a double-double for you, he's going to get you 25, 26 points for $4,000, which is going to be more than enough value to pay off his salary. The one pretty close to min price guy that I do want to mention is going to be Matthew Dellavedova. Dellavedova is only $3,200, which kind of shocked me. I thought that was very, very low. He's been playing in the 20 to 30 minute range and putting up over 20 fantasy points. If you can get a guy to put up over 20 fantasy points for $3,200, he's paying about 7 points per $1,000 of salary that you spend on him. That's going to keep you on championship winning pace, on a pace to have a roster that scores 300, and is going to free up that salary that you need if you want to go up and get a Steph Curry or get a Blake Griffin or, maybe even get a Russell Westbrook or Durant and put them in your roster. You're going to need to find at least one of those cheap guys in order to make that happen. And Matthew Dellavedova is the guy who I like the most so far out of all those cheap guys. Now, remember, with NBA, you got to really be vigilant and watch and see who's, who might be getting rested or who might be banged up and sitting out. There may be some other value plays that open themselves up later on today. But as of now, these are some of the glue guys that I've been using in my early rosters to try to fit in some of those studs without giving up a lot of upside. And that pretty much wraps it up for our DraftKings NBA video for Monday, November 2nd. Thank you guys for joining us here at rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.